Right, so welcome back everybody. Our next thing that we're going to be looking at are going to be Sculpt Solid. So to put it in a bit of a context, so thinking about the classroom environment, the biggest opportunity for Fusion 360 is not necessarily with existing accounts or existing industry types. The opportunity is really who Fusion was built for. You probably hear a lot of people asking, is Inventor going to be replaced by Fusion? And for those of you who have spent some serious time with both Fusion and Inventor, you'll know that that seems a real silly thing. The reality is, and the clarification that we must make, is what Fusion is for. So I've actually heard a story to help people relate to what it is. The most important thing about it is to think of Fusion 360 as a separate company than Autodesk. Think of it as a company sitting out there that realised that Inventor, SolidWorks, Creo, Solid Edge, NX, CATIA, all these tools are just amazing. They do all of these phenomenal industrial orientated, hyper standards driven phenomenal things, but they also do some quite basic stuff too, like simple solid modeling, simple drawings. It's very easy to make solids from the drawings. You can do nice renderings, and there is a whole lot of people out there who are either starting companies, are hobbyists, who are possible farmers or lawyers that they do for a living, but they also like to make stuff in their spare time. Maybe a lawyer that likes to make birdhouses at the weekend, or the farmer who just needs to fabricate something for one of his machines. Those people do not need Inventor. They don't need the industrial focus tool. This little company called Fusion 360 started a tool that was going to be able to do the most important things that the big tools do, but without the intellectual overhead, the cost, and have the flexibility of being able to start a design on the laptop sitting at the coffee shop and finishing it at home on a Mac without having to move data around. Taking advantage of the cloud storage and cloud delivery. It's just a different tool for different people. And this is where part of the challenge is as well. Do you reach people that you typically don't reach? And some that might be found with doing some exhibits or outreach to local makerspaces and fab labs, or looking for professional organisations where people maybe do things related but not quite engineering and mechanical or industrial design, but finding opportunities to get the word out that the tool is available. The thing is, for those of you that work for resellers, it's a very different product in that as frequently your training is also related to a sale somewhere where you have been able to get revenue from the sale itself, but that isn't the case. As even if you are able to sell Fusion 360, a large number of people, especially the people just getting started with Fusion 360, would qualify for the software for free anyway. It does require a different approach, but hopefully you'll see that at least through the next couple of days here where opportunities might be. But you're definitely going to want to try and stretch and think outside of the box, because Fusion 360, even when we get into the more traditional mechanical stuff tomorrow, you'll see it's just available for people who would not normally have it. And that's also why it's good to get involved with some of the education efforts that we're putting out there, and to help be able to build a relationship there. And you might be able to leverage for other events to help draw some of those people in and give them an opportunity to try the software and sit down with them and work through the real process, or even help them recognize a process or develop a process. Definitely a different approach though. What we're going to do now is start transitioning into, for the next hour or so, this free-form body. And we will complete the free-form body and then move into the solid world, so we can take advantage of the traditional solid modeling tools to augment the design. What we will be doing is going ahead and adding more surfaces or T-spline bodies, again bringing things together. We will also take advantage of taking a look at a couple of new tools and a couple of new approaches versus drawing, the basic primitives. Then we'll go ahead and create a solid model from all of these faces and all of these surfaces, So rather than me waffle on for too long, let's go back to Fusion. So I'll go back to Fusion here. I'm going to close out of this model. I don't need to save it. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to come into my folder 3. So using the technique I used before, I'm going to go to Sculpt to Solid, double click on that data set. Now this one, it's partially completed body. It looks very close to, I think, what we were making before. So if we look at it, it's not actually far off what we've done previously. So it's getting there. We weren't too far off. What we're going to do now, we're going to model this end here up to the body and then merge it together. And to do that, I'm going to start at this end. So I need to create an offset plane. Now there are lots of real cool ways to make planes in Fusion 360. A lot of them you'll recognise. So up in the construct up there, you'll notice offset plane is at the top, but if I open up the dialog box, you'll notice all the different ways that we can create planes and axes. I just want the offset, and I want to select this plane, and I'm going to create another plane over here around about minus 160. So you see there, it's going to sit at that point there. If I go OK, I've now created that plane. Before we used a primitive, again I'm going to use it, but this time, rather than using the cylinder, I'm going to start by using a primitive box. I'm going to select this plane here. So if I now just move on to my front view, I want to make sure that I'm hitting the center line. So what I might do is just come straight onto there, specify the center, and then I'm going to come off and I'm going to make it around about, I think, 60 millimeters, and then tab to the other one, and I can put 70 in. Tab. Yep, so it's created that box there for me. Spin that around a little bit so we can see where it's done. Direction, ideally, I want it to be going in this direction, coming forward that way, and around about 20, I think, was the size that it was there on the front view. I can actually pull it out a little bit further if I want. And then new body, and I'm going to take advantage now of this mirror line. So if you notice here, last time when we did, we had no mirror. On this one, I'm going to do mirror. We get a drop-down box, and it asks which word you want to mirror, because we could actually mirror it on this line there, or down the length there, or across the top. So if I go length, you see I get the green line. If I press OK, it now adds that body. I can modify, and I can select. I'm just going to double select the body, and I'm just going to move it up a little bit into position, across here, move it down a little bit. Now, one thing I'm going to do before I actually do any more modification on it, I want this to be hollowed out. I don't want these edges. So if I scroll in and I select that, now you'll notice because it's got mirror symmetry, it's picking up the one on the other side. If I just press delete, it removes that face, but look how it's opened it out. Do the same there. If I spin it round, do the same on the back on this side, delete, delete. And that is more the shape that I wanted than that original design that I got. I can then select my body. I can select it, modify it, so I can scale it up a little bit if I wanted to. Sort of try and match this a little bit more. Maybe I want to double select that edge, bring it in, double select that edge, bring that back in a little bit so it more lines up, get that in the middle a little bit. So that's starting to line up a little bit more like we want it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually bring this section down here. So I'm going to view on the front face. I'm going to double click to select this back edge. Then I'm going to hold the Alt key and I'm just going to pull out the face there. But then I'm going to use the scale and I'm going to actually just scale that down a little bit there. In fact, I won't use that particular scale. I'll use the middle one and I'll scale it in all directions there. Then using the Alt key again, I'm just going to bring out another one and another one just there for the minute. So you can see now how I'm starting to build up this end around there. Now one of the things I want to do, if I look back on this front end, is I've got quite a sharp transition here of my model. And at the minute this is a little bit smooth. So what we can do, if you know, this is far sharper, that transition there, than the G2 continuity that Fusion 360 gives us. So if I just finish out of this edit form, and then I go modify and crease. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. See how that one's gone dark because it was selected? Just cancel that. Undo that a minute. There. Right, so what I want to do is, with nothing selected, modify crease. And if I double select that, you'll notice now how that transition has changed. And if I just OK that, and you'll notice it's gone a much darker colour, because that's where that is now a crease in there. I can pull this and I can edit it and I can pull it in if I want there. So you can see now how it has affected it there. Whoops, let's pull that down a bit. There. Pull that. I'm just going to transition that down a bit there. So again, soft manipulation on pulling, but that's now given us a very hard. And if I come out there, you can see now what sort of crease that has given us within that section. One thing to ensure if you're using these data sets further down the line is to ensure that this primitive is on the center XY plane, so that the center of it matches the center point of the rest of the model. Now, one of the things I didn't do was check that, so we'll see what happens as we go along. It may be we get an error later on, but I may not have centered it on the XY plane, which may cause us a little bit of an issue further down the line, but we'll see how we go on. So what I want to do now, I want to add 3 more faces onto here and bring it in a little bit. So again, just like before, I want to start bringing it down into this. So I'm going to modify, I'm going to double click this edge, then using my Alt key, just to add 1, 2, just 3 more, there. If I'm looking at this part, you'll see it's quite a bit off the model, so what I can do is I can just select this and start to pull. Oh, I didn't want that one. I wanted the arrow. Just pull the arrow up. If I set the alternate one and let Fusion do the smooth in between, maybe pull this one up a little bit to try and start to match it a little bit. So now that I've added 3 more faces towards the handle and I've put it roughly into position, next what I want to do is try and line it up. So what I'm trying to do is line up these faces with these faces, because eventually we're going to bridge between the two. If I go in to my 3-dimensional view, you see there's quite a distance that way. I can, if I want, just try and manipulate this myself. So either using these, I can bring that down and see if I can actually get that more roughly into position. Smooth it off there. This one, maybe just shift select. So again, it's very much playing about with the model having a feel for it, what you think is going to work with it. And spin that around, you can see that probably needs to come up a little bit now. Maybe that one up a touch. It's getting a little bit closer. But as you develop your skills, try to get used to looking at it in the isometric view. In this way, developing this sort of third eye, this three-dimensional eye of starting to line things up, selecting and then dragging the plane. You'll see that it's not only more dynamic, but it gives great results, and it allows you to develop that eye. So when you're working with someone who is looking for guidance or mentorship through your training, you can show them that you have developed a higher level of skill set. So rather than just looking at the top view, looking at the front view, if you can do it in isometric as well, you're showing that appreciation and ability to work in a bit of a higher level. So indicator hours are generally a good reference to see that everything's going to match. So I'm going to press OK now. As far as I can see, it's not looking too bad. Now to close up this bottom bit, we're not going to introduce anything new. We're going to use the same tools but in a slightly different fashion. And what we're going to do is these three edges here, we're going to try and bridge with these three edges there. Now this is where if I've selected the wrong axis to put this primitive on, this is where I might get problems. So if I go modify, bridge, side 1, I go 1, 2, 3, side 2, 1, 2, 3. So we'll see what happens now. I don't need 3 faces between, so I'm just going to put 1 between. If I go OK, and there you go. Actually, I must have selected the right plane to do it on, which was luck more than judgment on this. Before now I've done it wrong and I've had a bit of a hole or a notch up there. So you can see now it's starting to come on our shape form. Next thing we need to do, if we're looking at this, is bring in this face here inwards, sort of our battery side of things in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first of all grab these 3 front edges. So if I don't know, that's grabbing too many. So what I want to do is just very quickly go 1, shift select 2, 3. Then using the Alt key, hold on, modify, using the Alt key and the arrow, what I'm going to do is just bring in here, Alt in, and start closing it off in that direction there. So I've now started to grip and bring in. I'm just going to turn my grid off there. Maybe I'll see it a little bit better there. So you can see I've started to bring that in. And then as you can see, finally what we need to do is bridge between these 2. Now, what we need to do with this, when we're bridging between these 2, is make sure we create the same number of faces. And then, because what I want to do here is, with this, is make sure that I've got this center line, because if you notice here, I've got this line of symmetry going round. Now, if I was just to bridge with one face across here, it would do it, Fusion would do it, no problem. But then I would lose this sort of line of symmetry around this part of the handle there. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, in the canvas here, I'm just going to change the opposite of that now, turn it down a bit. Okay. So I'm going to do modify, back to the bridge tool, and I'm going to select edge 1, so 1, shift select 2, 3, go to side 2. In fact, let's see if we can modify, let's go bridge. If I double click on side 1, double click on side 2, arrows are pointing in the same right direction, change faces to 2, hopefully puts us a line in the middle, press OK, and there we go. So we've now matched up here. So again, preview, it's looking pretty good. So the last step is to actually weld up now these vertices. So I've now got this gap here. You can see there, I've got my center point, so I know that that's going to weld to that. And let's see what we get. So modify. If we now go weld vertices, if I go that one to that, and because the mirror on, it's done it automatically on the side, and that one to that, and there you go. What we've now created is our basic model there. I know it's slightly out from the thing down there, but now this is where we can actually transition and move and modify. You can pick things up and we can move it, modify it to the actual design. Now if you want, you can start editing the form and moving things around, and you will have noticed through this I've not been too bothered about matching up the shape exactly to the sketch. So, you know, again, like I said, I can go around and I can start modifying, and I can start scaling it up, scaling it down, moving it round, and I can do that all over. You know, I can actually just start pulling and twisting anything I want, and really just starting to modify it around there. Even quite complex stuff. The only thing I've got to be careful of, like I did there, is I selected that, but not that center one there. So if I went back and then shift and selected the ones that I wanted, so I've got, where is it? Spin round, double select that, and then shift select the matching ones there, and then I can start pulling this out. There, let's have a look at it on the front face. Yeah, you can see I can start matching that, and then I can start bringing these down, and so you can, it's just getting to know each one. You know, I can box select, pick a few, and I can bring out this little toe bit, box select and bring that up. So very quickly you can modify, you know, this particular shape to get it to how you want it to be, and now it'll work best for you. Like that. So again, you can work and you can modify it. And when you're doing these modifications, don't try and do every single edge one after the other. Just jump from one edge to the next, and leave a couple between, and let Fusion do, you know, the smoothing over between the two as you're going along. A lot of it's practice, but also paying attention to what happens. So as you're doing it, see what happens, and then modify your approach depending on the results that you want. Again, different, you can pick up vertices, you can pick up edges, faces. Each one will give you a slightly different variant, slightly different outcome when you're modifying and changing it. And it's what works for you, what works for your students, what results they want. And a lot of it is having a go, trying it, and finding that the best way, the best solutions for you. And not everything I'll do is possibly the best way of doing it, or even probably the correct way of doing it. But there isn't really a correct way to do it. It's more down to individual taste or what your customer or students is trying to do. It will cause a lot of differences in the approaches. Right. So what I'd like to do now is looking at transitioning this real cool looking curvy body into something we can do something with, somehow taking it to the next stage. Because at the minute, if you look at it, it is just an infinitely thin sculpt body. There's no thickness to it, there's no depth to it, it's not solid, it's just this curved structure. if we now finish form, so what I'm going to do on this is finish form there. You'll see now it looks as though, you know, I've actually still got some work to do here. Again, you can see there where I will need to do some adjustments on my design because I've got some of the interior workings coming out. So again, to do that, back into the timeline, double click on the form, open it up, and then you can start selecting various. Maybe I just wanted to shift select, oops, one edge, shift select that edge, modify, and you'll see as I start pulling it out, it starts tapering away. Maybe I want to shift select that one as well and pull that out of a little bit. Maybe I pull that. So you can see just by doing different manipulations. Again, I could spend hours and hours on this, just trying to get the shape perfect. But for that now, I think I've just covered the bit that I wanted to do, which was to remove that. So I finish on there, and it's now totally enclosed within my body there. So what I'd like to do now is look at transitioning this really cool looking curvy body into something. It generally looks, I think, you know, pretty good. We've addressed some of the areas now where the inner material's been poking out. The next thing I want to do is finish cleaning this up and make it into a solid. Now, I've been in and I've cleaned up, and I've actually now encompassed enclosed all my internal workings. That makes sense. My casing now covers everything. The combination of conception and mechanical, it's great because we've got like the mechanical workings in there, and now we've got the body of the conceptual design that we're like molding around it. And as we move in from the sculpt environment to the model environment, you can see where there is a collision between components, or it sticks out. And that's, I think, a lot of it is because it encompasses both. A lot of realistically, a lot of industrial design is done around hard parts. So a lot of industrial, you know, the gears, the motors, and things like that. And that's what we've got to design around. And what you're finding is, like, year on year, is companies are using these same internal parts and just changing the bodywork. So that they're actually taking the body like this from last year. So this saw was last year's design. And what they actually do is just take last year's design and add something to it, or pull something out, or modify it, make it look a bit better, look at the aesthetics of it and how it works. And then it's evolutionary design. Yeah, everything inside it's still the same. It's still the same gears, still the same motors, but the actual casework and the gubbins around it is moving with the times. It's looking more 21st century type of model. And being able to do this just in one tool like Fusion 360 is great. So now that we've got our finished form, what we need to do, I'm just going to turn off now the origin for a minute to make this a little bit clearer, is I want to make this a solid. I want to now try and make this into a solid object so that, you know, we can add some thickness to it and we can see where we're up to. To do this, because at the minute you'll see I've got a hole at the bottom and I've also got a hole at the side here. I need to patch these up, and the area that I can go into to do this is actually our patch environment. So we've got a patch environment here, and you see again the tools have changed. We've got sketch, we've got a create menu that's all specific to the patch environment, same with the modify. What does patch do? Patch is similar to the construction environment for you Inventor users, where you are able to bring in geometry from other areas, create some other geometry or fix it up just to make sure things work properly. What patch will allow me to do is create surfaces. For lack of a better term, patch surfaces, using techniques a little more with solid modeling. For example, in the model workspace, I can't just draw a line and extrude a surface. in the scope workspace, I can just draw a line or a spline and extrude that a distance, and it will create a T-spline face. Well, what Patch will allow me to do is define something that works better in the solid environment. What I'll do, I'll keep my canvas turned on to act as a bit of a guide. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start a sketch on my XY plane. So first I'm going to come here. So I'm viewing on my X and Y plane, and I'm going to create a sketch on here. I might actually do a spline. Let's have a look. So we'll do a spline. Again, if I'm struggling to select that, if I zoom out a little bit, it's a lot easier to select. Now what I'm going to do here, the first line of my body, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start out here somewhere. I'm going to draw a line that comes and follows this around here, this little bit. So if I move that across and pan across, and I don't want it to actually here snap to any line, so I'm going to make sure when I start, I'm not being perfect. Again, just roughing this out. There. If I click the tick, it gives me this. I can now go in and I can edit this, so I can move these around. Now you notice I'm actually still in the spline tool. So what I need to do is just escape, and now I'm out of the spline tool. And now I can actually modify, and just like before I edit on these, the tangencies I can turn and I can twist. I can move the points. This is the severity of the tangency going in and out of the point. And I can very quickly try and mold this to the shape that I want. I'm just going to pull that down a little bit there. Let's see if I can just twist that round a little bit. And I'm just close to trying to match my sketch. Now what I want to do is come over to the create pull down. You notice similar types of tools. So if I now stop that sketch, if I go into the create pull down here, there you'll notice similar types of tools that you'll find in other workspaces in the same places. So the consistency is really nice and it makes it easy to. So I'm going to extrude and bring out a distance. So if I go into extrude, now the profile that I'm actually going to extrude is just going to be this line. And if I just now go into my three-dimensional view, now I can actually pull this out as a flat plane. Now what I'm going to do, let's have a look at the dialog box itself. So what I can do here, I've got obviously one selected, so that's selection. I can chain select starting point. I can actually start from the profile plane, or if I want I can actually offset it. So I can actually start 10 millimeters off this plane to a certain distance if I was to select that. You watch the start point there. If I was to change that to 5 or 10, you'll see it's actually moved that from that plane before it starts. I don't want that. I just want from profile plane. I can go extent, so I can go distance to objects or through all. I can do one-sided, or I can do two-sided, different lengths, or I can actually just go symmetrical. With this, I'm just going to go symmetrical. There, so if you look there, done that, and then finally, we could actually, in here, if we wanted to do, taper it at an angle. Yeah, so really nice capabilities built in. You can also make it a new body or a component. So I've got a new body or a component. We'll just leave it as a new body and press OK. Now what I'd also like to do here is create a new construction plane. Where we did this one at 160 before, what I want to do is create a new construction plane 180 out from the original. So if I turn on the origin again, offset construction plane, pick up on this one, come out, and this time it's at -180. So if we look at that, that should, there we go. It doesn't quite come to the end of the model that we've done before, and press OK. So we've now got our sculpt body that we used. We've got this plane that we created. Sorry, the plane that we created there. And we've got this extruded surface that we've got there. For those of you who are Inventor users, you will have heard me mention Sculpt when referring to T-splines and to a workspace. In Inventor, there is a Sculpt tool that will allow me to take a series of surfaces, planes or faces, and combine them into a solid model. Fusion 360 has a tool that essentially works exactly the same way and is actually quite clever. This is a very simple version model for us to work with. This tool is called Boundary Fill. So if I go on the select, create here, Boundary Fill. Again, you get a pop-up dialog box with it. Select the tools. So I want the body, I want that extruded surface, and I also want that plane. Yeah. Select the cells, that one. Operation, new body. Okay. So you'll notice now we've had a new body created here. In bodies, if I was to turn them two off, that is our new body that we've just created. There. So let me turn off the origins, and in my construction, turn off my plane that I created there. And now you can see this new solid body that I've created. To check that it's a solid body, or just to show you that it's a solid body, if I was just to turn on my origin again, if I go into Inspect and go to Section Analysis and just select any of these work planes, you'll see now my solid body. I can, sectional analysis, I can pull that through. And you can see the sections through all the parts and components. Again, even with this sectional analysis, I've got manipulator handles. I can change the angles of it. Change it back. If I'm viewing round, again, I've got that way, so I can actually view my section through my model in that direction. But you can see there that my body that I've now created is solid. So just go OK. So that's now created it. You'll notice in analysis there, section analysis, that's on. If I turn it off, I'm back to my model. But if I ever want to view it again and manipulate it, I can do it so I can see my section there. Which is a nice little tool for checking things as we go along. So I've now got bodies forward turned off. I've got a solid model from that complex geometry. What we need to do now is make an opening for this blade here. We can turn the blade guard off in the browser if we want. If we wanted to make an opening for that blade. So if I was to go into the browser, what I can do, blade guard assembly, I can turn that off. Which is that one there. Blade guard, turn that one off. So you can see now I've turned them off, which allows me then to start a rectangle tool. Yeah. So what I can do, I can now go back into my model space. Clicking on that section there, go into sketch, 2-point rectangle, and what I'm going to do, because I know there is something inside that I need to dodge, if I go hidden edges, I can see the actual blade, this circle bit there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a slightly larger opening in that circle there. Stop sketch. Now before I do the extrude, what I want to do is actually shell this model out. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm actually going to split the body. I tell you what, let's split the body first. Let's show you that. So at the minute we've just got this one solid body. So I select the body. If I go into modify, split body, I've got the body already selected. The splitting tool itself is going to be where I want it to be split. And because we're on the XY origin here, if I open up my origin and I select my XY, there, you'll see there it's got a nice cutting edge where it wants to cut. slice, press OK, and you'll notice now I've actually got two bodies in my body folder. I can turn one off, switch it, turn the other one off, spin it round, which then allows me, if I wanted to do, to shell it to 2mm. Now I could have shelled it as a whole body, but also what I can do here, if I select this, modify shell, just put it to 2mm inside. Okay, and there you go, that's now shelled that side. Do exactly the same on the opposite side. There. So whilst I've got it selected, modify shell, 2mm inside. Okay, so it's now shelled both. Turn on. Let's get rid of my visual style back to my normal visible edges. You can see here my sketch. I can actually now extrude that sketch. If I pull my arrow inside, now what you will notice, it's starting to cut through everything. As I pull it, everything starts to disappear. And what that is here, what you've got with, we can either in Fusion go to all the components down at the bottom and turn them all off, and then they wouldn't be affected, or alternatively, down at the bottom here with objects to cut, if I open that up, I can actually just remove, untick all the bits that I don't want to be cut. There. Just press OK, and it's now just cut my casing. So we've got two halves, we've got the cut. I can then go in, and if I want to do a radius, I can either go back to my sketch, if you look in the timeline, and go back to my sketch, and I can put fillet radius in, if I wanted to do, in here. So sketch, fillet in there, if I want to do. Stop sketching, just to show you. There you go. Or alternatively, oops, I can go modify, fillet, or F as a shortcut, and select the line there, and then pull. You can see it there, and pull, and change my fillet. So there's a few different options of where you can actually, obviously in this option, you know, I can go around, I can do multiple selections. Finally, we can turn the guard back on. So let's just reduce these down a little bit. Yeah, so I can turn the blade guard back on, get a back assembly back on, and that is our completed model there that we've done. The same with this as well. If I wanted to add in here a fillet, you know, if I wanted to go round now, I can move down my timeline and I can go back wherever I want, and I can modify things. If I wanted to add a fillet in here now on this face, select it, modify fillet, put a little fillet in, press OK, move my timeline forward, and it adds all that in. What you will notice though, because I put the fillet in before the split, if I then just turn off the one of the bodies there, you'll notice that it's curved in there. Yeah, there you go, you can actually see the edge. Let's get display settings, visible edges, hidden edges. So you actually see all my edges in there as well. In fact, I'm not actually quite happy. That doesn't look as though it's shelled properly. Modify shell. It's not I've done. So what I'll do, let's try this. See again, the beauty of Fusion. I don't like that. Just delete it out of the time frame, timeline. Delete again out of there. What I'll do, I'll roll it back to let's go to the shell. Right, we've split. So I'll remove one of the bodies. What I want to do is shell this. So if I go modify, shell, that, 2mm, that's better. That's looking a lot better there, and you'll see that the fillet does follow that. You can see there that you can make mistakes, and you can very quickly with Fusion go in and rectify them and sort out what you've done. You haven't lost any details, and it's just a great tool for doing it. So may as well make it complete and shell this side as well. So modify, shell, like that, 2mm, press OK, and then we've got that complete. Excellent. So if I move back now, moving on just now to the final hour, visualization and rendering. Inside Fusion 360, there is a really good rendering tool that said it's totally different for those of you used to 3ds Max or Maya or even Inventor. Where Inventor has a great rendering capability, Fusion 360 again has this great tool that was really not built for the expert renderer. It's not for someone who knows how to properly build lighting and camera positions, focal lengths and all that. Fusion 360 was built for the person who just wants to create a really cool image, or an image that will draw in investors, or just allow someone else to understand and to visualize what it is they're trying to create. It works great. It takes advantage of the large library of appearance overrides. The scene settings are based on HDRI, so you're not just having to set up all the lighting and all the scene settings. You're not having to build all that. You're just able to take advantage of environmental lighting. You can add lights. You can also take advantage of decal. Decal's a great tool for putting on there. It's dead easy to do. Also, there is a texture map control. If you take a look at the image on the right that was done in Fusion 360, and by the way, I think that's a really great image, there are third-party add-ons such as Keyshot. If people want to go even more high-end, but the tools are really nice, there are also two separate rendering engines or two separate rendering capabilities. One is the render tool, which is really nice as you can use your local hardware, or this is fantastic for customers or students that don't have strong computers. You can use the cloud to do the rendering, and it's just built in. The other rendering tool is in Canvas Rendering. And to be totally honest, I'm not a rendering expert, so I frequently use in Canvas Rendering, if for no other reason than to set up my other renderings. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a demonstration. We're going to look at a model that's already been done, and we're going to play about with some of the settings and just really show the various capabilities of Fusion. And again, it's one of those that once you know where to go, it's a case of having to play and finding, you know, your own best techniques. So we'll go back into Fusion again. Because I saved my model, it's actually saving it on closing. If I now go out, see, I'm remembering now to go into this tool. If I go into visualization and rendering, and what I want to do is load up the blue one. So the visualization and rendering one in the blue. In fact, I've actually loaded up the wrong one. That's the finished one. I'll load up the unfinished one. I think that's a better way to show you. So we'll look at this model. There's notice we're still in the sculpt environment. There are two different ways of looking at it. If I right click in the canvas, so if I right click here, I have the capability to add physical material and appearance and go on to the texture map control. So if I went into appearance, I get a pop-up box. Sorry, it's come on the other screen. And this tells us all the different materials that are already, or finishes that are already within this model. I've got here a wealth of libraries. So whether it's glass, metal, plastic. So in plastic there, I've got opaque, texture, translucent. Open these up. If I want any of these, so let's say I want this, I don't know, plastic one, bring it across. Now you'll notice that it's up at the top here, it says bodies and components, it's highlighted. If I bring this across, because it's got the bodies, it'll actually drop it and put it on the full body. This is only in appearance. Undo that. Alright, undo that. Right click, appearance. If I just go faces and do the same, you'll notice now it's just doing on individual faces. Now this is an appearance override. It doesn't actually change the physical material of the model. It's just how it looks on the screen. But this will start to build up in the InDesign library. So if I was to add in, let's say that metallic blue, just in that corner there, you'll notice it adds it in here. The matte blue, should I say. I can double click on this. You'll notice that that's great. Split over my screen. There we go. Move the model across a bit. Double click on that. And what this allows us to do, this is an override. So we can change by grabbing. Yeah, we can change, and you'll notice the actual model itself as I'm dragging along. It changes within the model. And anywhere that I'd had this material selected to, it would change there as well. So there's a lot I can do in there. I can go to advanced. If I go in advanced, I've got a lot more options. Again, I'm not an expert with all this, but you can see there you've got very emissive products. We'll have a look at that later on. Got relief patterns, cutouts, advanced highlights. There's a lot you can do in there and apply to the model. Now what I'd like to do while I'm in here is if I just get the hard rubber. So somewhere there's a hard rubber. There we go, this hard rubber. I'm just going to drop and put it on there and drop it on that one. So I've got a nice hard rubber there. It looks okay, but I'd like to make a few changes. If I double click on that in the menu, from here you can now access the material and make adjustments to it. So maybe I want it a little bit lighter. So in here, yeah, I can actually change the lightness of it. So I can actually scroll down, see that how it's changing the lightness. Also, I can go into advanced and I'll select add bump map. So if I double click on that, again go to advanced, this time if I go bump map there and open it up, this brings me to my folder. Now these will all be shared with you. The access to the folders for like the logo, the saw, the background. This grip bump map is an image that's been taken off Google. If I open it, it's now put it in, and you'll notice now that it's, let me just open this a little bit higher so you can see it. We've got our image in there. You can change the scale and rotation of it. So as we're looking at our bump map now, if we, let me find where it is, somewhere. I said it's in the actual image itself. So whilst we're in here, we can change the scale of it, the offset, the rotation. So if I want it at 90 degrees, oh sorry, let's put it in there. So we can actually change there we go, as we modify it now, we can change that. The angle of the bump map. We can change the scale of it if we want to do. We can highlight it. So you can get a really good sort of effect. And it's right easy to create some materials and build out the visualization of this model. So that there's quite a bit of stuff that you can do here. So let's, if I was to change that to 50. There you go. Yep. Let's scale it up there. Again, it's something you can really just play about with. I could spend hours and hours, so I don't want to spend hours and hours, but I'm just showing you how you can do it. And again, you just apply. I cancel out of that. We've now got that bitmap on there. Let's have a little fun. I'm going to click on the other library. There are a few different libraries here. So while we're here now, libraries. Yep. You can, sorry, whilst we're in here, I may as well mention it to you. We've got Fusion 360 library. You can create your own and include them in there. And if you've got some favorites or ones that you're always using all the time, you can actually place them into the library themselves. So you've got access to be able to create your own series of libraries for the products and the materials that you're using on a regular front. What we've also got, if I was to look in here in the libraries, let's go back to the Fusion appearances. This time I'm just going to go to Other. And you can see we've got quite a wide range. You've got Emissive. So if you wanted to add something that was emitting light, you've got the possibility of adding, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just add if I move around here, let's make this light here. I'm going to just drop that onto this. Let's drop it onto, let's change that to bodies, components, and we can select all of the switch. Move, there we go. So that now switch there will be an emissive LED light. If I want to go into it, you can see now I've got a different selection. I've got roughness, I've got how bright, luminance it will be. So I can change that. Also, so I've just set that light up there. So later on when we do a little bit of rendering, you'll see how it affects it. I'm going to go to wood as well. So let's go to, I'll scroll back out. By the way, if you've got one of these like arrows pointing down, that means that it's not currently in your library to use, but you can download the materials into your library. So if you're after a specific material that's got an arrow down, if you click on it, it will download it into your library. If I go into wood, solid wood, let's go to let's have a look. And finished. Let's go to finished. And I don't know, walnut glossy. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put walnut glossy and I'm going to drop it on that component there. That safety switch. There. Now what you will notice, if I zoom in, you can see how the grain follows the end. So if I'm looking on this side, you see that the grains are following down, but as they actually go round, you're getting that end grain effect across there, which I think is really sort of cool how it looks. If I close the appearance dialog box and then click on the canvas and go to texture map, so let me close this. If I then click on here, right click, and then go to texture map controls, what I can do now is select the switch body. I then get these manipulators on, and manipulator handles. And what it allows me to do is drag these around. So if you now actually start looking, now you'll see my grain moving along. Right, so I can position my grain. I can zoom in and zoom out. So again, using the same manipulator handles, I can zoom into the grain and zoom out of the grain. I can change the angle, so I can spin it round. And you see it's just a real cool feature within there, which is just standard within Fusion. But it's just knowing where the tools are, how you can access them. There you go, spin it around and change it around there. Again, you can play about with it and you can get a whole series of different effects that are on there. If I want to change the scale overrides, I'd go back to the appearance dialog box, select the finish I want and edit it, and go through the different options. I think these effects are great and already are adding to the appearance of the model, and we haven't even started the render tool yet. So if you look at this, we haven't even started the render. And all right, I've still got, I'll tell you what we'll do. What I'm going to do now is just change, leave that around there. See, I can actually build this up as we're going along. Let's just dig in a few things whilst we're in the appearance box with Fusion 360. So let me open it up again. Appearance box. In Fusion 360, we have a range of different selection types. Again, we've got the bodies, got the faces, so we can apply. If I wanted to apply this particular opaque to that body, I'm going to keep the rest of the faces. I've just moved that there. And already it's looking pretty good. If I want to just do it to that face, again, change it to faces and then just apply individual faces as I'm going along. So very quickly I can build up, how my model is looking there, just on this side, and I have to do the same on the opposite side, obviously. So depending on the type of models, or the type of body, we can simply select by selecting faces, edges. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the render workspace. So let's go into the render workspace. So we're going to scope now, because we're not actually in the render workspace at the minute. We've just set up appearances and go to render. Now already this is actually come up as it was originally set up. As we move in, there's some standard views that already start, which are built in Inherit, that are based with the drawing. You'll notice that there's reflections, shadows. If I was to rotate this round, you'll see that we've actually got lights that are built in from the scene. So up at the top there, we've got, I think it's 9 lights coming down. So that will be built in from the environment that we've got. Moving across from left to right within our workspace here, we've got appearance. And again, just like before, the same appearance box comes up. We've got access to it in this space. As well as, we right click, we've got appearance there as well. Scene settings. I click on scene settings. We get our scene settings dialog box. And what we've got here, we've got the brightness. Now this is how bright the light is from the scene. So we can reduce it and modify it down. Position. This is if you've got a particular scene, you can change how far your model is off or through into the floor. So I can modify that. I can also change around the angle that the model is within the scene. Now, because you'll notice just around here the lights from above, because there's no back scenery, you can't actually see that changing, but you'll see them lights changing there. Environment. At the minute, we've got a background that's set to environment, which comes from the environmental library. So it's set up initially as a skylight. We could change that to rim highlights, just drag it on, drop it on. It changes. So if I was to view around now, you'll notice that my 6 lights from above have gone, and I've just got the rim highlights that comes off. And there's there's quite a number of these that are built in, but also you can download some other ones. So if you want to put it into a field or your model, but you can also attach custom ones, but they need to be the HDRI type of photograph that you can get in there if you want to do your own. We've got ground plane. We can turn it on or off. You can see there you've got reflections, non-reflections. Let me just turn that position off there. We can flatten the ground or not. We can turn reflections on or off. And then obviously we can change the roughness of the ground, so the clarity of the reflection that you're seeing in the image. Then we've got cameras, so we can change from perspective to orthographic to perspective with ortho faces. So there's a number of different options we've got there. Focal length we can change. Now this is where it starts moving out of my sort of comfort zone, as in is what I'm doing here. Depth of field we can put on, so we can change the focal point of the depth of field. We can change that on and focus on something. Environment, where we've got the environment, we can actually change it to a solid colour and pick the colour. So if I wanted, let's just move this, okay, let's just move this over a little bit so it comes on the screen. Select the colour. If I want a red background, apply, got a red background. So we can actually change and modify the background to our model. We've got solid colour, we've also got environment that we've got in there. Also decal, so we can add some decal onto our model. So if I go on to decal, all I need, I think this is really cool, because all I have to do here is select a face that I want my decal on. So if I select that face, select the image. So for this one, I'll just pick Autodesk logo, open it up, and where has it gone? Ah, there it goes. And it's on. Now, look, it's our friends, the manipulators again. So the manipulators, we can move it around, that face. We can scale it. We can move it planarly, move it up and down. We can spin it round. So we can actually put this wherever we want in there. Position it when you're happy, okay. And there you go. We've now got that image on our face there. Texture map control, so we can actually, again, we've got access to the texture map. In canvas rendering, this is what I was talking to about setting things up. If I went in canvas rendering, what this does, this actually starts the render tool, and when it starts doing iterations, and as iterations go, it gets finer and finer, the outcome. And you can see there, it's a time elapsed, the number of iterations that it's done through the design. Excellent is when we get to this point. We can pause at any time, the iterations. The only downside for me from this, obviously using computer, using a bit of memory whilst you're doing it, but as soon as you modify your position, you can actually see here the LED, the light that's coming through from the LED. If I was to move the position of the model, it starts again. So to zoom in, zoom out, the iterations start again. Turn it around. I can pause, but it will pause in that position. Pause it, come and do what you want, and then it'll start again. But depending on your model and how complex your model, how fast your machine, this is great for setting things up, because I might actually go back and reduce the brightness of that on switch if I was had time to do it. So I'll turn off the in-canvas rendering. We've got in-canvas rendering settings here. So we've got fast. So it's a quick way, or we've got an advanced where we can set things up. We can lock the view in there. Same with as we're doing it, we can lock the view to make sure that it's giving us what we want. At any point, whilst we're rendering and doing the in-canvas rendering, we can capture the image that's on the screen. Again, this image here is not a rendered image. So there's a lot of adjustment that we can do. Before we can actually do a final render, we need to remember that these exercise files are read-only. So we need to save our own version to a project. So this actually won't render or produce that final rendered image unless we've actually saved it. So if we go save as, just save, and that will now allow me to actually complete my rendering. So if I go to render, the render dialog box gives me a few options. I can do a cloud render. This is where we'll use credits, or I can use a local render. We'll use local render. I can set the quality, standard or final. I've got advanced settings, so I can actually change it to excellent if I want to do. I can do it locally using my processor, or I can switch to Cloud Render. Now the Cloud Render, it will tell me how many cloud credits are required to do a particular image size, and I can just then tell it to render. Once it's done that, and it started that render of that image, I can now actually just move and modify my design. It's not going to stop this rendering that's happening here. This will just go on now in the cloud and it'll produce my rendered image. So I can now position it, change it, modify it, change my scene settings, change the colors, apply, and then do another render. So I can build up my renders. But if you're a student, you get free cloud credits. If you're an educator, you do. But if you're a commercial, you need to pay for the cloud credits. So I would only advise doing the actual cloud rendering once you're actually happy and you've got your final image that you want to do. Even if I shut down my computer, it's still, because it's doing it in the cloud, it's still going to render it. And they'll present them in a nice gallery for me. When it's done, I can create a turntable of the rendering. So hopefully, as this is like winding on, come on, it will do I can actually do a turntable of the rendering, or if I've actually done a motion study on this particular reciprocating saw, I could re-render the motion study and produce a video. So only those that you've done motion studies with, once you've actually done the initial render, you can actually go into that render and ask it to re-render it as a motion study. At this moment in time, I've not actually got this set up, but I'll see if I can do a model for tomorrow that as a motion study, and that we can have just show you how we can just click on it. It just gives you an option in the gallery. Yeah, so it's not just quite finished yet. It's not got that sharp image, but hopefully it will do shortly. But then, as you can see up here, I've just gone on it pretty quick so that I can show you the icons at least. We've got the turntable option, and if it had a motion study connected to it, you'd have the option to actually rerun the render as a motion study. Produce a nice little video. So there's a lot of flexibility. So there you go. That I can re-render it as a turntable, but it would use 5 credits, and it's telling me at the minute it'd take like 20 minutes. You can download or you can delete. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of power, and simple to use and adjust. One last thing, you can set the rendering aspect. If you find you are using these settings all the time, you can set them up as default. If you've got a standard that you want, standard setup, standard lighting scheme that you want, you can actually set it up as default in there. So that's really all we're going to touch on rendering. So finally, you're all glad to know it's the last session of the day. We're going to do a look at convert and pull, and what we're going to do, we're going to open up a drawing that's got an ear, scan of an ear, and it's got an existing standard ear bud. And what we're going to change, we're going to change the actual standard ear insert to match more the profile of the ear. This is a really cool topic, which is what a lot of industrial designers do, which is taking an existing product and updating it to be this year's product. What convert and pull does, this is going to be a great example of taking a combination of things. One of the trends that's been talked about for a few years is called mass customization. The ability to take what would be a standard product offering and being able to offer it in some special form. For example, here with the earbud, with the transducer and the housing, the cord, everything about it is a standard except for the little foam that fits in the ear. This foam piece can be a custom fit. You'll possibly already seen this with some companies, and they are using physical molds. In this example, what we will do is take a scanned mesh of an ear and leverage it to build up a custom foam piece using all the same tools or most of the same tools that you have already seen today, plus one additional one, and we will end up with a solid model, something that can be 3D printed, or the negative could be printed to make a mold and go from there and see what you think. So that's what we're going to do. The demonstration is I'm just going to close this, and I'll close that one. And finally, we're going to open up our convert and pull. Now, which one is it, the left or the right? Let's go to the left. Now, there are a few things that work in this file. We have a multi-body design of our rear bud, and we have a body that is the mesh of our rear. Yeah, so that's our rear bud, that's the multi-body design, and that's the mesh of our rear bud. So what I want to do first is turn off some of the extra bodies, because what I don't need at the minute is all these on display when I'm working on here. So if I open up all these bodies here, all I'm really bothered about is currently that one. So if I turn off body and just leave that one, and if I zoom in a little bit and we have a look round, you can see the sort of standard body, how it interferes with the ear. And I think most of us actually probably just shove it in and not bother. But with this mass customization, what people are looking at now is a more bespoke sort of offering and fit into this. So what I'm going to do is turn off the ear first as well. What I'm going to do, come to the ear, let's just turn off the, oops, wrong one. Let's turn off the ear mesh there. And just do a quick conversion. So in the sculpt environment, in the utilities drop down, I have a convert option here. What I want to do, I want to convert a B-rep face to a T-spline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select initially, oops, B-rep face to T-spline. I'm going to select this face there. So like before, it's asking me how many faces we want. So I'm going to say 8 around the body. 8 around the body. And 4 for the width, yeah? 4 going down that way. And I want this new face to be a new body. Okay. And you'll see the new body appear. So if I now come here and turn off that body there, you'll see now I've got this nice new T-spline body. If I turn my ear back on, there, and take a look at my fit, yeah, so what I want to do now, make sure in my selection filters that I've got select through on. Yep. What I want to do now, I want to actually use some of these mesh points and some of these vertices and get them to mesh together or click together with the nodes meshes in the actual ear itself as a guide for the nodes and the vertices for fitment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something now called, where is it, pull. You can see now it's asking me what do I want to select, and I actually want to select all of them. And select all of them. Target is auto. Select them all. You will see that they auto snap. So if you notice now they've actually auto snapped to the nearest mesh there. So every single one's auto snapped. It's not done a bad job really, but you can see the gaps. You know, you can actually see the gap there. It's actually brought it in a little bit tighter in there, and there's a bit of a gap there. So okay, so it's now snapped that in. So what I want to do is there's that gap that I want to get in. I'm going to actually insert an edge here. So if I modify, insert edge, if I select, I can get hold of it. Let me see if I can get hold of an edge there, that one. There, 50, That's fine. There, it's now put that just in there. Press OK. Smooth it out a little bit. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just run that tool again. So modify, pull, select them all. You'll see now how it's now pulled that in a lot tighter. Press OK, and that is a lot better fit in there. Now I'm going to turn off the ear. So you'll see now this shape that we've got that fits into our ear. Now, just like before, I'm going to try and clean this up. So if I go on to my left view, and if you remember that trick that we used before, I'm going to try it on this side where I want to try and flatten now this face. So if I double select this edge, modify, and using this scale and pull that all the way to 0, enter. That's now flattened that face. Now this time, if I select this front edge here and modify, what I want to do is I want to change the actual pivot point of where this is pivoting from. Set pivot, click on it and select that node there. I have to remember that I have to click done. And once I've done that, if I now, let me just zoom straight on here first, pull this down to 0 again, and it's now flattened that face off as well for me there. So I've now got 2 flat faces just by using that same tool. Now that we've done that, let's turn back on our this bit here. Because what we're going to do, we're going to pull up a little bit on what we've done here. I'm going to use this, one of these edges. I think I'm going to use that, and I'm going to create a surface here that we can pick up on this afterwards. So just like before, utilities, we're going to convert, and I want this. And this time, if you remember, we had 8 before, but we've added 1 to make it 9 because we inserted an edge. So I'm going to change that to 9. If I go OK, remove body 9. Now you'll notice now that it's actually created a torus from that. So just by selecting and pressing delete, we can now create that part there. Now, one thing to watch out for is creases in our models, which will be viewed as a hard line. If you actually look on this now, you can see on this bit here, it's like a thick, darker line of these lines. That is because that is actually creased, and if we actually look at the model there, you'll see there's a bit of a lip where it's creased. I can, in modify, go uncrease, and I can select them. Okay, and it'll uncrease that. And actually what I can do, I think that looks like it's creased as well. That looks like a darker line. So if I go modify, uncrease, and select that there, that's actually uncreased. Yep, that's uncreased that for us as well. And press OK. Now we can use the bridge tool. And what we're going to do, we're going to actually bridge between this face and this face. So modify, bridge, side 1, double click, side 2, double click, add 2 faces, preview looks okay, press OK, and suddenly we've now got this earbud that's starting to look something like it should do. Again, any creases? No creases. creased edge. If I was then to turn body 9 back on, this is now what we're looking like. Now we want to convert this inside cylinder, this bit here, to the end to a B-rep. So again, utilities, convert, B-rep, want to select the inside cylinder. With the preview on, check the output and you see it looks like it's adding 9 faces down the length now. If you actually look here, it actually looks as though it's adding 9. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, not around it. So change that 4 and that 9 around there. Say OK. Turn the body 9 off. And now we've got this internal there that looks OK. Use bridge one more time. Select the front edge of the cylinder. So I think what we're going to do now is, if we move this round there, we're going to now bridge between these two. So modify and bridge, and we've got that edge and that edge. Number of faces, let's put 3 in this time. Okay, and there we go. We've now got this insert. Now we have our last step, but you'll notice there's no design history for this form, with it being an imported file. And maybe I should have actually turned it on before I started, but you can turn it on at any stage by right clicking on the top level and selecting capture design history. Now that's popped me out of the sculpt, but I can go back into the bottom timeline. So if you notice, it does pop me out. I can go back into sculpt at any point. Just click in there, OK, and I'm back into my sculpt environment. Now I'm going to thicken this in here. You can thicken in the solid environment by creating a parallel surface with a ruled surface between it, but using thicken in the sculpt environment allows me to select the body and then select the thickness offset, making sure it's going inside. So if I go modify, thicken, select the T-spline body. Now I said this particular model is in inches, so I'm just going to put it at 0.01 of an inch. Going inwards. Now one of the options is you can select the thicken type, with sharp being the type ID you get in a solid model. Use a soften thicken type. I think, yeah, I'd rather use a soften one. Softens it up a bit. It constructs a parallel set of T-spline bodies. And then what it does do, it allows you then to have an inside and an outside T-spline body when you thicken it, which means that you could actually change the contour of either side, and one's not reliant on the other. So if you want a different A to B side, rather than just having a simple offset, you have that option. So for this, I'll choose soft, and then OK. And you'll see now, it's thickened it up. Let's turn on these particular bodies now. See what it looks like. They're all done. And you can see now it's starting to look something like it should do. Maybe not perfect at the minute, but I think that's a real customized. Yeah, let's see what it looks like in the ear. It's a lot more snugger and tighter fit for that particular individual and their ear.